May 1945. The Thousand-Year Reich is burning. In Berlin, Adolf Hitler is dead. On the Western Front, the Wehrmacht is disintegrating, dissolving into columns of tired, broken men walking west to surrender to the Americans rather than face the wrath of the Soviets in the east. But in the Austrian Tyrol, deep in the jagged peaks of the Alps, the war is not over. Here, the concept of a clean surrender is a myth. The mountains are crawling with remnants of the Waffen-SS, fanatical, well-armed, and refusing to accept defeat. They are retreating into what Allied intelligence fears is the Alpine Redoubt, a last fortress where the Nazi elite plan to make a final suicidal stand. Perched on a small hill near the village of Itter stands a 19th century castle with medieval roots. Schloss Itter. To the casual observer, it is a picturesque relic. But in these final days of the war, it has become a high-security prison. Inside its walls are not soldiers, but high-value hostages of the Third Reich. These are the Prominenten, French VIPs whom Hitler believed he could use as bargaining chips. Among them are former French Prime Ministers Édouard Daladier and Paul Reynaud, General Maxime Weygand, the tennis star Jean Borotra, and the sister of Charles de Gaulle. For years, they have lived in a gilded cage, guarded by the SS Death's Head units. But as the snow melts in May 1945, their situation shifts from captivity to mortal danger. The prison commander has fled. The guards have abandoned their posts. The prisoners are technically free, but they are trapped. Below the castle, the forests are filling with men from the 17th SS Panzer Grenadier Division. These are hardened veterans with orders to kill the prisoners and leave no witnesses. The prisoners arm themselves with weapons left behind by the fleeing guards. But they are politicians, elderly generals, and civilians. Against a Panzer Grenadier division, they stand no chance. They need help. But the nearest American unit is miles away, across terrain held by hostile SS forces. The call for help reaches two very different men. First, Captain John Jack Lee of the U.S. 12th Armored Division, a brash, cigar-chewing tanker waiting for the war to end. When a Czech cook arrives on a bicycle begging for help, Lee doesn't hesitate. But he cannot move his whole unit. He must volunteer a small rescue team. He takes one Sherman tank, named Besotten Jenny, and a handful of infantrymen. Meanwhile, in the chaotic vacuum of the Tyrol, Major Josef Gangl of the Wehrmacht is facing a moral crisis. A veteran of the Eastern Front, he has become disillusioned with the Nazi regime. He now leads a small group of German soldiers who have turned against the SS to protect local civilians. When he learns of the French prisoners' danger, Gangl makes a decision unprecedented in the war. He needs help, not from the Wehrmacht, not from the SS, but from the Americans. Under a white flag, he approaches Captain Lee's tank. He is not there to surrender. He is there to offer an alliance. Lee, wary but practical, accepts. For the first and only time in World War II, an American tank commander and a German Wehrmacht officer join forces as co-commanders of a single mission. Their combined force is pitifully small. 1 tank, 7 American soldiers, 10 German artillerymen, and 1 Austrian resistance fighter. Fewer than 30 men. And yet, against them, more than 150 SS soldiers are preparing for an assault. At dusk on May 4th, the convoy reaches Castle Itter. They break through a roadblock and enter the courtyard. The French prisoners expect a liberation army. Instead, they see 1 tank and a truckload of Germans. Lee positions the Sherman at the main gate. The Germans and Americans take positions along the castle walls. Then, the night grows quiet. The kind of quiet that precedes catastrophe. At first light on May 5th, the attack begins. The SS open with an 88mm gun. The first shell crashes into the courtyard. The second hits the Sherman tank. It is disabled within minutes. Their strongest weapon is gone. The infantry assault begins. SS troops push up the hill, firing Panzerfausts and machine guns. Inside the castle, Americans fire their M1 Garands. German soldiers fire their Kar 98s and MG 42s. The French dignitaries refuse to hide. Paul Reynaud helps carry ammunition. Jean Barotra encourages the defenders. Chaos and courage mix in every corner of the fortress. Captain Lee moves constantly, shouting orders. Gangl translates to the Germans. The defenders speak different languages, but they share one goal: survival. Ammo runs low. The radio is dead. Reinforcements are far away. A desperate plan is born. Jean Barotra, the legendary tennis champion, volunteers to escape the castle and run for help. During a lull in the fighting, he vaults over the castle wall and sprints into the forest, dodging patrols, running toward the American lines. Back inside, the situation worsens. The SS prepare heavy machine guns to sweep the parapets. If they reach the gate, the defenders will be overwhelmed. Then tragedy strikes. Major Gangl sees Paul Reynaud exposed to sniper fire. Gangl rushes into the open to pull him to safety. A single shot rings out. Gangl falls. He dies instantly. A German officer killed while protecting a French political leader. He is the only defender to die in the battle. By mid-afternoon, the SS are preparing their final, overwhelming assault. The defenders gather inside the keep, ready for a last stand. Then, a distant rumble grows louder. It is not artillery, it is engines. American tanks and half-tracks from the 142nd Infantry Regiment burst onto the scene, led by Barotra, who successfully reached them. The relief force opens fire with heavy machine guns and cannons. The SS, caught between the castle and the Americans, break and flee into the forest. The siege is over. American soldiers pour into the courtyard. The exhausted French VIPs, politicians who once shaped Europe, break down in tears. They shake hands with filthy American infantrymen and salute the bravery of the German defenders who fought beside them. In a quiet corner lies the body of Major Joseph Gangl, honored by friend and former foe alike. The French prisoners are evacuated to safety. Captain Jack Lee is recommended for the Distinguished Service Cross. The German soldiers who defended the castle are taken into custody, but treated with unusual respect. They had fought for something larger than allegiance. 2 days later, Germany formally surrenders. The war in Europe ends. And the Battle of Castle Itter enters history as one of the strangest battles ever fought. The only time Americans and Germans fought side by side against the SS. But beyond its strangeness, the battle reveals something deeper. It shows that even in the darkest moment of humanity's most destructive war, individual choices still mattered. Joseph Gangl chose conscience over obedience. Jack Lee chose courage over safety. French leaders fought beside German soldiers. Enemies became allies. Ideology gave way to humanity. History is not only the story of nations and armies, it is the story of choices. And at Castle Itter, in the final hours of the war, they chose courage.